102.7 FM. The show's Collective with John Rose. Thank you for joining me today. We've got a lot of stuff to go through. We had a loaded sports weekend, and we still have more to go. NFL football later today. And, throughout the week, there was a trade. Jimmy Butler in the NBA traded from Minnesota to the 76ers, which is an interesting trade in and of itself. But the thing that is most interesting to me is how the Timberwolves allowed that to go on as long as it did. You have a disgruntled employee. He doesn't want to be there. He's being very loud and obnoxious about the fact that he doesn't want to be there. Fellow employees don't like him. How did you not make this trade happen before the season started? Right? Like, it's clearly toxic for the locker room. So we're going to talk about that. That's going to be fun. Obviously, a lot of college football happened yesterday, so we're going to break that down. I want to talk about the Titans and their road to the postseason. And we are at the midway point of the NFL season, the halfway point. And I want to give out some awards. I've got 3 categories. These are not hard categories, very basic categories, right? We've got best coach. We have best offensive player. We have best defensive player. We have worst coach. We have worst offensive player. We have worst defensive player. The worst defensive player is going to be a little bit tough to figure out. But the worst offensive players, I had so many candidates, I might have to give out co-awards. There are a lot of bad players offensively in the NFL, right? It's very, very incredible. So let's start with Jimmy Butler to the 76ers, because that is a trade to me that I forgot that it hadn't happened already. That is how obvious it should have been to everyone involved that you trade Jimmy Butler. Move him anywhere else but where he is yelling at the GM who walks into a practice, where he's yelling at his fellow teammates. They don't like him. And look, I'm actually on the side of Jimmy Butler as much as this is, because sometimes you're in a situation and people don't like you, and it's because you're an annoying person. You're a bad person. You're in a situation where people don't like you, and it's you. That's most situations. Let's be honest. If you're in a situation and everybody hates you, it's probably you. Fix something about yourself, right? If you met, this is something that I used to hear people say in Texas, though I'm going to give you the FCC friendly version, which is, if you met a jerk today, you met a jerk. That happens. If everyone you meet is a jerk, you're the jerk. I don't think that's the case for Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler does ride people. He does grind people. But Jimmy Butler is a competitor, and he's not a big fan of softness. In an NBA where you could make the very strong argument it's softer than it's ever been, Jimmy Butler is not a big fan of softness. And who are his teammates? Who are his main teammates? Karl Anthony Towns, who I like. I like him a lot. And Andrew Wiggins, whose athleticism I like a lot. But I don't know. Can you find a duo of guys softer than those two guys in the league? I don't think you can. I don't think you can find two guys softer than Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins together on one squad. Say what you want about Chris Paul and James Harden. Can they play together? Does that work as the Houston Rockets disaster continues to happen? Say what you want about that, but those guys aren't soft. And Chris Paul tried to punch Rondo in the face. Right? Like, say what you want about the Lakers and can those guys play together? Those guys aren't soft. Right? The Wizards are falling apart. Bradley Beal, John Wall, drama in the locker room. It's a bad situation. They just won a game last night, and I thought that was a miracle unto itself. But those guys aren't soft. You look at Minnesota. Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins might be the two softest guys in the entire league. You cannot have Jimmy Butler play with those guys. It's bad for team morale. It's bad for Jimmy. It's bad for the guys because you know he's just going to be yelling at them. They can't take it. They couldn't wait to see Jimmy go. Now, I don't even know that the Timberwolves got all that much back. They got a future draft pick, a future first rounder, which from the 76ers, now that they're good, doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. And they went out there and got Dario Saric, who's okay. Who's okay. So this is the squad that you now have, a couple of soft guys and Dario Saric. Meanwhile, the 76ers get way better. Way better. I'm not saying this makes them a contender. Most of the contenders are out west. Boston is a legitimate contender in the East. Toronto's a legitimate contender in the East. Those are the only two legitimate contenders in the East. And this doesn't make Philadelphia better than Toronto, and it doesn't make Philadelphia better than Boston. But what it does is it brings them closer to Philadelphia, or to Toronto. It brings them closer to Boston, where we're not sure who's going to take shots at the end of games because Markelle Fultz may be a bust. I'm not ready to give up on him just yet. He was good in college. I'm sorry. I'm not blind. And I refuse to believe that I looked at that guy play in college and just somehow got it that wrong. And that's just my pride in the way, I suppose. But I'm not blind. He's good. He's a good player. I'm just not giving up on him that fast. But he clearly can't shoot right now. Ben Simmons hasn't tried to take a three this year. He clearly can't shoot right now. So what are we looking at? We're looking at Joel Embiid, who actually knocked down a three the other night, but Joel Embiid's game is not predicated on his ability to shoot. You got Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler can knock down shots. He's not a great three-point shooter, but, some three-point shooting is better than no three-point shooting, right? So I look at it and I go, this is actually a really good trade for them. It brings them much closer. Plus, Jimmy Butler is a good defender. And more importantly, probably most importantly, this is a better fit for this squad. This is a better fit for this team. Joel Embiid is chippy, right? Tough. Ben Simmons, chippy, tough. Markelle Fultz can't get out of his own head, but I don't see anything from the guy to suggest that he doesn't give effort and that he doesn't give 100%. Those are the guys you put on a Jimmy Butler team. You do not put Jimmy Butler on a team with cottonelle, with tissue paper, with moist towelettes. That's what the Timberwolves are. That's what the Timberwolves are. And I can see why Coach Thibodeau didn't want to trade him. Because Tom Thibodeau himself is not a soft guy. Those aren't the players he wants to coach. He wants to coach more guys like Jimmy. And because Karl Anthony Towns, to be clear, is in that same mold of Anthony Davis and Giannis. Granted, Giannis is probably the most freakishly athletic guy in the league. Anthony Davis is right there. And then Karl Anthony Towns, to me, in terms of dynamic, game-changing type player, Karl Anthony Towns. He is right there with that caliber of player. But those aren't the results we're seeing on the court. And the reason why is that Karl Anthony Towns is soft. He gets pushed around. He doesn't rebound. He'd rather be on the outside shooting than being on the inside down low, banging with the other bigs. And it shows in the way that they play. And this Timberwolves team, which I thought was on the come up, which I thought they were on the ascension, yeah, that's falling apart. They're not going anywhere. That team is as good as it's going to get unless they can get another guy in there who's got some toughness, who can also play with Wiggins and Towns. But Wiggins underachieves, man. Like Andrew Wiggins, does anybody underachieve more than Andrew Wiggins in the NBA? Can you find something? Does anybody underachieve more than Andrew Wiggins in sports right now? Active players. Is there anybody not living up to their full potential quite like that guy is? I'd be hard-pressed to find a list. And I love lists, as you know. I'd be hard-pressed to find anybody who we thought his potential was somewhere, and then it's like Markelle Fultz, who I mentioned earlier. He is that kind of guy. We thought he was going to be a whole lot better, and he's just not. For whatever reason. Showed up to the league, and as Nick LaFew likes to say, forgot how to basketball. I mean, I've never seen that before in my entire life. So this is a big-time trade, at least for the 76ers and at least for the Eastern Conference, because it makes the Philadelphia 76ers an actual dark horse to make it to the NBA Finals. They're not getting past Toronto, barring some kind of injury, and they're not getting past Boston. Even with an injury, we've already seen Boston overcome injuries. If this Boston team stays healthy, how can you suggest that anybody else is going to the NBA Finals? Can't suggest it. Not at this point in the season and not at any other point in the season. But it brings the 76ers closer by giving them a guy that gives them defense, three-point shooting, and he's a good fit for their locker room, which is something that's overstated and underrated all the time. You're listening to all new Nuga Radio and NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be giving out the midseason awards next segment. I think you can guess some of these. Like, worst coach. I'm not going to be a contrarian on worst coach. But I like to bash him. You know who he is. You know who he is. But I want to talk about the Ravens and John Harbaugh very quickly because they're entering the unknown. And it's a reminder of how amazing what the Patriots have done actually is. They're entering the unknown. You know, a lot of very mediocre coaches get to hold on to their jobs in this league forever. And the reason why is because teams don't want to enter the unknown. The Patriots haven't had to enter the unknown, which is uncalled for. It's unheard of. You have a team in a sport that injuries happen. It's physical, it's tough, it's brutal, where drafting the most important position on the field is a difficult task to do. We almost never get it right. Where you have to worry about cap space and imbalances in your roster and market efficiencies. You have to worry about every single last one of those things. And the Patriots have managed to stay good by having a quarterback that they've been able to keep for his entire career, and he's extending his career by being able to win with good talent and without good talent. Gronk gets hurt, doesn't stop him. By having great coaching, people take their coaches and they still continue to roll. So you see how hard it is for most teams to be able to pull that off. So there's a lot of teams that are stuck with average coaches and they just kind of keep them. The Redskins stuck with Jay Gruden because they can't fire Jay Gruden to get who? Who's better than Jay Gruden out there on the market? You've got the Cowboys and Jason Garrett. Refused to fire Jason Garrett, right? It like the Bengals. All of these teams have coaches who are average or middling, maybe slightly above average, but they're not performing at this high level that you would keep them tenured for greater than 4 or 5 years. But these guys have kept their jobs for a very long time. Like, what has Jason Garrett actually done to show you that he is a great coach? And now the Ravens are entering the same place with John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is a very good coach, but he's been middling for a while. And it's hard to do in the NFL to keep a guy who's middling, to keep a guy who's just averaging out. The part of John Harbaugh's problem is that his quarterback is Joe Flacco. And he's gotten so used to Joe Flacco being his starting quarterback that he doesn't seem to realize that Joe Flacco's not very good. Doesn't seem to realize that Joe Flacco kind of stinks. You look at all these other teams that drafted young quarterbacks, almost all these other young quarterbacks are starting. Joe Flacco started the season off decently well, but he's not playing well now. Right? And then the Ravens and John Harbaugh are considering a mutual split. And it's been a good run. In that run, they won a Super Bowl. They took advantage of the best month of Joe Flacco's career. But the Ravens are right, though. It may be time to move on from Harbaugh. It may be time to move on from Flacco. Well, where does that put them? It puts them in the unknown. It puts them in the place that pretty much any NFL team doesn't want to be in, where you're trying to figure out who's your next coach. Because almost as hard as it is to find great quarterback talent, it's hard to find a guy who's good at coach that isn't already employed somewhere. Right? It's hard to find a good GM. Ozzie Newsome retired. The last NFL draft was his last draft. And he built a team that's been successful for a very long time. This is an incredibly solid defense, but he drafted Lamar Jackson to be the future of this team at some point. Is the next coach you hire, are they going to want to go through the highs and lows of working on a project like Lamar Jackson is. It puts him in the unknown. Who's going to be your next coach? Right? I mean, you can find all kinds of offensive guys, and I think those are the guys you'd have to find for Lamar Jackson. We've seen what can happen to a quarterback with a lot of talent, a lot of mobility, a lot of physical gifts when you put him with a coach that cannot coach. We've seen it happen to Jared Goff. We've seen it happen to Marcus Mariota, because that's my personal belief with Mariota, is Marcus Mariota didn't ruin himself. Marcus Mariota had coaches that didn't want to coach offense, that wanted to run an NFL offense like it was 1993 in the year 2018. That's not good for your young quarterback. Do you have a coach in mind who's going to come in and try and maximize the upside of your young quarterback, like what Matt Nagy's doing with Mitch Trubisky in Chicago? Because you're going to have to find one. Who is that guy? Who's that going to be? That's the unknown. No NFL team wants to wind up being in the unknown. You got a new GM, you've got a new coach possibly incoming, and at some point you're going to have to give up on the Joe Flacco experiment. He's not good. He's not good. If you really want a masterclass in how far winning a Super Bowl can take you, winning a Super Bowl can take you this far. Because if Joe Flacco did not have that Super Bowl, we're not even having this conversation. The reason why we are talking about this in the fashion that we're talking about this, where Joe Flacco is actually a viable option for the Baltimore Ravens, is in large part because Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. This is what I'm talking about. Here's what I want people to do. I want people to take a look at numbers, take a look at stats, and compare stats without Super Bowls. For instance, Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers. If you don't look at the Super Bowls and you just look at the stats, you just look at the data, Phillip Rivers is far and away the better quarterback. It's not even close. Phillip Rivers is the better quarterback. But when I ask people, when I ask you, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame, Phillip Rivers or Eli Manning? People say Eli Manning like it's obvious. Well, he's got the 2 rings. Guys, quarterbacks have won multiple Super Bowls that shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Every quarterback that wins a Super Bowl can't be in the Hall of Fame. Okay? Doug Williams can't be in the Hall of Fame. He had one of the great Super Bowl performances of all time. But his career, we're talking about the Hall of Fame for a guy's career. And then with Flacco, we're not even talking Hall of Fame. We're talking about, should he still be a starter? And when you compare Joe Flacco with the rest of the guys in this league, the only thing that I have to tell you is that in no way should Joe Flacco be a starting quarterback still. I mean, he's better than some of the guys that get run out there. We talk about Nathan Peterman. He gets run out there. Blake Bortles somehow gets run out there, and only Lord knows why. None of those guys, right? Like, we see them as inefficient and guys that need to be replaced, right? Like Alex Smith is a guy that, the Redskins, he's doing the job right now. You could definitely do worse at quarterback. They have done worse at quarterback, but he's replaceable. Joe Flacco has somehow been irreplaceable. We had a conversation after he won that Super Bowl as to whether or not he was elite. He got paid like a top-end quarterback after a month of good football. When will NFL teams learn? You can't pay a guy after 1 month of good football. A good playoff run does not a good quarterback make. This is obvious, right? Like the Jaguars did this with Bortles, though part of it with Bortles was that Bortles failed his physical at the end of the year. So they extended him to 2 more years to sort of spread the money out. They were cheap and they didn't really want to just pay him the money to go away. Though, come on, if you're a Super Bowl contending team, you make a real strong move to get a quarterback if you've got all the other pieces. And they do. They have all the other pieces. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And it's one of these things that plunges you into the unknown. And when you look at the teams that are good and look at the teams that are bad, The teams that are good are the ones that find themselves in the unknown the least often. You talk about how dysfunctional the Pittsburgh Steelers are, but I'll tell you something about the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have continuity. The Browns don't. You're listening to all new Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com, here on 92.7 FM. Clutch with Keon Rose. Mid-season awards next.
Traffic, news, and information. Nuga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news. Now.
3 women were arrested after a late-night chase on Signal Mountain Road. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office says they saw the Mustang driving erratically. When they tried to pull it over, it sped off, and passengers started throwing suitcases and luggage out of the windows. Eventually, they stopped them and arrested 3 people inside. Haley Brandenburg, who the TBI listed as an endangered child, was found missing walking along the highway in Henry County, Georgia. Robert Guerin, the man she was believed to be with, was taken into custody, and reports say Miss Brandenburg is safe and sound. There's a 2-alarm fire at a warehouse on Amnicola Highway, and reports say that workers were trapped on the roof. The Chattanooga Fire Department rescued those workers. Reports say smoke could be seen for miles as the fire continued to rage on. It took 24 firefighters to put the fire out. The cause was ruled to be accidental. Russell Stroud, Nuga Radio News, Talk 92.7 Action News now.
David Tulis, I made the move, 1 o'clock every weekday afternoon, 1 till 3, Nuga Radio.
92.7 Nuga Radio, Chattanooga weather.
After this cold and frosty start, lots of morning sunshine for your Sunday. A few afternoon clouds, highs 50 to 52. Tonight, lows near 40 with increasing clouds. Rain will push back in from the south and west Monday. Chilly highs near 45, a few lingering showers through Tuesday morning. What did Jesus mean when he commanded us to be ready? Find out in Looking Up, Living in Anticipation of Christ, a book by local author Eddie Turner, available now at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I'm Source Gene Qualls, Chief Meteorologist at your 4.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
Where to go for lunch today? Go to the Top. The Top of the Hill Country Buffet offers a delicious lunch buffet every day. Golden fried chicken with mashed potatoes from scratch, daily fresh vegetables, a full salad bar with all the fixins, and fresh homemade cobbler. In addition to the buffet, Top of the Hill also offers a full menu. Plus, kids eat for $5 all day. Top of the Hill is located in Ringgold on Remco Shops Lane and is open 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Where are you going for lunch? Go to the Top.
I live, work, and play in Chattanooga, the scenic city. But when it comes to my next car, truck, or SUV, I'm Alabama bound. Fort Payne, Alabama, and Landers McClarty Ford. Big city selection of new and pre-owned vehicles with the small town price and friendly service. Now, I'm not knocking my hometown, but when it comes to my next ride, I only go to Landers McClarty Ford of Fort Payne. Their selection is huge. But if I can't find what I want, they'll find it for me with the same low price, same great service, and only a short drive away. And I can go online to look around before I leave the house. Got that next dream ride in your head yet? Yeah, you do. Get a head start at Landers McClarty Ford of FortPayne.com. Don't just dream it, find it at Landers McClarty Ford of FortPayne.com. That's right, Landers McClarty Ford of Fort Payne, Alabama.
Nuga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Hello? Who am I speaking with?
Eric.
You're our winner.
Really?
You'll receive tickets for all 3 races between the Camping World Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and the Monster Energy Cup races.
Holy cow.
In addition, you'll receive a 2-night stay at the Microtel Hotel and restaurant accommodations at 2 area restaurants.
Nuga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Nuga Radio.
92.7.
Your NASCAR racing station. Nuga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
Listen to that. That's the sound of power and the call of the open road. That's the sound of the newly designed 2019 Indian Chieftain Limited. Yeah, Indian. It's more than a bike. It's an experience and an American icon. The place to find it, Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga, along with their entire new 2019 line. The open road is calling. Answer the call. Go to Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga. Just look for the sign on 153 and Nicola. Indian Motorcycle, the true American original.
Join Nuga Radio and the Gridiron Gang live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks at 10 North on the North Shore. We're talking all things high school football. There's a specialty brew or refresher weekly inspired by the game of the week. Sweet treats, extended hours all season long, and we're pet friendly. Portions of all proceeds support local schools and educational scholarships, as well as after-school programs. It's football time in Tennessee. Join us every Thursday live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks, 10 North, your North Shore neighborhood living room.
The kids are back in school, routine has returned, and we've shifted our thoughts to the fast approaching holiday season. Are you hosting? Want to spruce up before your guests arrive? Whether you want new color and exciting wallpaper or elegant window treatments, the designers at Chattanooga Paint and Decorating can help. With brands like York, Tebow, Graber, and Carroll, we know you'll find something you love. Stop by Chattanooga Paint and Decorating today. It's really more than just a paint store. On Hicks and Pike, across from Valvoline, or online at ChattanoogaPaint.com.
Nuga Radio.
Are you brain dead? Still voting for pathetic liberals? Take 3 hours of Sean Hannity from 3 to 6.
Nuga Radio.
Then call us in the morning between 9 and 11.
92.7.
Nuga Radio.
So I didn't get to catch the whole game. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Carolina Panthers played on Thursday Night Football. Panthers just got whacked. 52-21. And they scored a touchdown in 3 quarters. Didn't score in the third. But the Steelers showed up to play. And and everyone's asking what's wrong with the Panthers. I mean, that's the question there. And the answer is their defense, obviously. I mean, they gave up 21 points in the first quarter. The game was essentially over then because you knew Pittsburgh wasn't going to stop. Pittsburgh scored 10 in the second, 14 in the third, and then 1 touchdown to cap it all off in the fourth. And the Steelers are rolling. Le'Veon Bell has reportedly shown up to the Steelers training facility where I imagine he'll be trying to get back out on the field. They won't play him this week. They shouldn't play him this week because that would be absurd. He hasn't played football for the entire half a season that he's been missing. And I know he's been working out in the Miami facilities and been training down there. But I think we saw what happened with Des Bryant and the Saints. What happens when you try and rush a guy in, when you try and bring him back too fast. Des Bryant ended up tearing his Achilles. And this is one of the reasons why you don't miss football, why you try and show up and get your body right. Because stuff like that can happen. Now, obviously, you tear your Achilles. There's a level of freakiness to that kind of injury and flukiness to that kind of injury. And Des Bryant it's just bad luck. But part of that bad luck is predicated on the fact that you haven't been playing, you haven't been taking contact, you haven't been pushing your body to those extremes and to those limits. And Le'Veon Bell, you might want to take it easy re-entering football. I think they can. The Steelers obviously aren't desperate for it. They have James Conner. James Conner has played well. Originally, I was not as big on James Conner as a lot of people were. But here's the thing with James Conner. We act like James Conner is some dude off the street. They act like James Conner is just some bum replacing Le'Veon Bell. And look, the Steelers can do just fine with some guy. James Conner won offensive rookie of the year in a Power 5 conference. Right? Like James Conner is not a scrub. And doing a little bit of disservice to James Conner to treat him that way. He's been a very good football player his entire career. I mean, going all the way back to when he was in the Big Ten playing at Pitt. James Conner was at Pitt, and he was Offensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten when he was a sophomore. So James Conner can run. This is not just some dude. But let's also not mistake this, and let's not act like Le'Veon Bell is somehow on the same level as James Conner. Le'Veon Bell is on levels above James Conner. What the Steelers are afraid of is paying Le'Veon Bell longer than he is above that level. But you play your entire NFL career, especially from a financial aspect. This is the one big contract you're going to get. And you play like it, and you play for it. And if a team, specifically the team that you've been with your entire career, who's been logging the numbers, Le'Veon Bell, I believe, is one of the most used running backs in the history of the NFL. So here's a team that is logging the numbers on your body, right? They are just putting the time in. And they're not going to want to pay you long-term for the one long-term contract you're liable to get your whole career. Of course you hold out. Of course that makes sense. But Le'Veon Bell's not going to be playing this upcoming week. So obviously the Steelers are done with their part of week 8. But it's still incredible to me that somehow people expect Le'Veon Bell or expect James Conner to be at that same level as Le'Veon Bell. But they're going to be well. They're going to do fine. Right? Like this in today's NFL, you just need some semblance of a running game. You don't need the whole running game. You don't need necessarily a guy like Le'Veon Bell or Todd Gurley or any of these other guys if you have an elite quarterback. Right? Like if you're not sure that Jared Goff is the most elite quarterback, yeah, pay Todd Gurley. You know what I mean? You don't know if your future, how long Drew Brees is going to continue to play. Like, yeah, you pay Alvin Kamara. You pay these guys that run the football in systems where the quarterback is not necessarily the best player. With the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger is not just a good quarterback, he's a great quarterback. He's a great quarterback. And at that point, you don't necessarily need Le'Veon Bell if you have James Conner playing the way that he is. But there's still a lot of things that you can't do with James Conner that you were doing with Le'Veon in terms of lining him up as a wide receiver, getting him out in space, and asking him to win one-on-one matchups. They're not asking James Conner to do any of those things. So even though James Conner's played well, and prior to the Thursday night game, he had 4 straight 100-yard rushing games in a row. The Thursday night game, he had 65 rushing yards, but he had a touchdown. You don't need what Le'Veon does to win. But when you're the Steelers and you found a way in several previous playoff runs to choke away victories, you choked against the Jaguars. They played well, but you also choked because Blake Bortles was the quarterback on the other side. And you've choked away victories that you maybe could have had against the Ravens. And you found ways to choke. Then you might need all the firepower you can get. And if all the firepower you can get includes Le'Veon Bell, I hope he's happy when you get out there to play. Right? But I do think that he's doing the right thing by showing up at this point in the season, because what you're holding out for is to try and keep the wear and tear off of your body. To keep the wear and tear off of your body at the same time maximizing the amount of money that you can make, which means you sacrifice some, but hopefully you play, you look good, and then you get a long-term contract next year when the Steelers are no longer willing to franchise tag you. Because if the Steelers franchise tag Le'Veon Bell one more time, they're not going to have to pay Le'Veon Bell like a top 5 running back. They're going to have to pay Le'Veon Bell like a top 5 player. And a top 5 player means quarterback money, if at least for 1 year. And if you're Le'Veon Bell, I don't know. I'd go ahead and take that. Personally. Like they're just going to run out of time that they can franchise tag you. This is certainly the last time, especially if you look at how good James Conner has played. Are they really going to want to take the cap hit on a guy for 1 year that they don't even think they want to play long term? I don't think so. And I don't want to make it seem, by the way, talking about Le'Veon Bell and his decision to hold out, like Le'Veon Bell thought this all the way through, like there was some kind of master plan. Le'Veon Bell doesn't have a plan. Le'Veon Bell, I believe, knows 2 things. He knows he doesn't want the wear and tear on his body that the Steelers are going to ask him to do by running him into the ground, essentially. He doesn't want that. And he doesn't want short-term money. He wants long-term money. And this is how he thought he was going to do it. Did Le'Veon Bell plan this properly? No, he didn't. Because if Le'Veon Bell truly planned this, Le'Veon Bell would have showed up to camp. He would have at least shown up during the bye week. He maybe wouldn't have practiced. Right? Like we saw We saw Earl Bennett up in Seattle. He showed up and he didn't play. He didn't practice. He played on game day, but he didn't practice during the week. And the team would find him, but he was showing up and getting paid for the games that he was playing. And then he still wound up getting hurt. But at least Bennett had a plan. There's no plan with Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon was just like, yeah, I'm going to hold out until I feel like not holding out anymore. Because we knew they weren't going to give him a long-term deal. So he kept the wear and tear off his body. Like the stuff that he wanted to do, he actually accomplished. But not because he had some master plan. We're not exactly talking about Machiavelli here. We're just talking about Le'Veon Bell, who was jet skiing the week before the season started. Living his best life in Miami. That's who we're talking about. You're listening to All New Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. It is time for the midseason awards of the NFL. We're at the halfway point in the NFL season, and you know what I love more than anything on this earth? Lists. I will come up with any excuse to make a list, and nothing gives you an excuse to make a list other than utterly useless midseason awards. I saw all the other sports shows doing it, so I'm going to do it too because I don't know. I'll do it better. I don't need to be original. So I'm going to give you the best coaches, the best offensive player, the best defensive player before I give you the worst, because the worst is just going to be the most fun. The best coach is Sean McVay. And there were a lot of names that I had to sift through before I came to this. It's not an actually obviously easy decision because you have what Andy Reid and the Chiefs are doing. You have what Sean Payton is doing down in New Orleans with the Saints and how prolific they have been offensively. So, I mean, you've got a lot of options to choose from. But I chose Sean McVay and the Rams in large part because, A, the Rams are still undefeated. No one has beaten them. And the Rams have won a variety of games. They've won games close. They've won blowouts. They've won games where the passing game was what carried the team. They've won games where the running game is what carried the team. They've won games where the defense had to carry it. They have won every variety of game against a large amount of NFC teams. The NFC is the deeper, better conference. All of these things add up to me. Sean McVay is the best coach in the league, in my opinion. The best offensive player to me is, again, it's another close one. You start off to think, well, maybe it should be obvious, but it's not obvious. I wound up settling on Patrick Mahomes, which a lot of people certainly did, but another person who's being entirely overlooked in this MVP conversation, you ever heard of a guy named Todd Gurley? Former Georgia Bulldog? Like, Todd Gurley is insane, and he's making an argument in his play for the running back position in the NFL. These are Todd Gurley's numbers so far this season. Todd Gurley has almost got 1,000 yards. He's at 868. Okay, he's been averaging almost 150 a game. Like Todd Gurley is going to be crossing the 1,000-yard mark in the next couple of games. He's got 12 touchdowns this season. He's the most important player on the Rams offense. He's more important than Jared Goff. He's more important than Brandon Cooks. He's more important than that entire offensive line, especially in terms of the pass protection. Like he's involved in the pass protection. Like Todd Gurley, you could make the very strong argument that the best offensive player in football is Todd Gurley. The reason why I settled on Pat Mahomes is just the damage that Pat is dealing in the air, and the fact that he has to overcome the worst defense in football. He has to overcome the worst defense in football. They're not just bad, they're horrible. You could easily be 4-4 as the Chiefs right now. And it would make perfect sense. Right? Like the best defenses in football still struggle when their quarterback's not good. Patrick Mahomes has had to be the quarterback that's lifted everything as far as that defense goes. So yeah, I've said a lot on Pat Mahomes, also 29 touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes is going to break all kinds of records before this season is said and done. And we've seen him be consistent. What everyone wanted to know, can he do it when he's had a bad game? He had a game where he threw no touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and he still was able to bounce back the following week. He has been a gunslinger. We've seen a lot of that mentality. It hasn't burned him. And at some point, you just have to go, the kid can play. We don't need to sit here and pretend as though Pat Mahomes, well, I'm not so sure. No, sometimes the eye test works, and when a guy is good. This doesn't have to be hard. I don't know why we want to make this more difficult than it actually is. Sometimes a guy is good, and Pat Mahomes is good. Deshaun Watson is good, and we know. Sometimes a guy is a late bloomer. Those are hard to tell. Sometimes a guy gives you a lot early, and then it turns out he's not that good. We're seeing that with Dak Prescott. Pat Mahomes is one of the guys. He shows up. He's obviously fantastic. And then he goes out there and he proves it consistently, week in, week out. The Chiefs are winning, and we've seen this team collapse before. This is not that team. Pat Mahomes is, and I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, a gigantic upgrade from Alex Smith. It's a gigantic upgrade. Hey, giving out midseason awards, Pat Mahomes is my offensive player of the year so far. My defensive player of the year, and this one is a tough one, but it's Joey Bosa. The defensive lines in the NFL have been dominating so far this year. Joey Bosa, obviously, but J.J. Watt is healthy and has finally returned to form after a couple of years of not being able to finish the season because of just really, really bad injuries. A back injury, a back surgery kept him out of football last year, and I believe back surgery the year before, as well as some thigh issues, kept him out the previous year. So J.J. Watt returning to form, I thought about choosing him. I thought about Denzel Ward over in Cleveland. I thought about Kevin Byard, the safety in Tennessee, who's playing just lights out football. There's a lot of guys to choose from, but I chose Joey Bosa because Joey Bosa, when he's healthy, makes the Chargers defense a legitimate defense. And that's one of the things that Phillip Rivers has not had throughout his career. It's one of the things that the Chargers have not had in the last 5 or 6 years, is a consistent defense that goes out there and wins games for people. Wins games for that offense that legitimately is one of the best offenses in football right now. Phillip Rivers, 19 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but you need defensive support. The reason why the Chargers are 6-2 is because Phillip Rivers and that offense don't have to go out there and win every single week. They've had bad weeks. Like they had a bad week against the Titans. They started off very hot, and they weren't able to move the ball in the second half against the Titans. Why did they win? Defense. Kept the Titans out of the end zone in the last second in London. I mean, it's defense, and Joey Bosa leads it. That's why, to me, he is the best defensive player, the best defensive player of the year so far. Now I want to give you the awards for the worst. All new Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Clutch with Keon Rose, giving out midseason awards. The worst coach in football is John Gruden. Right? Surprise, surprise. It's John Gruden. He's terrible. And this is not going to end, by the way. There's a distinct belief that John Gruden's somehow going to pull this together, right the ship, figure it out. Nope. You know why? Because none of the things that John Gruden was hired to do has John Gruden actually been able to do. John Gruden was hired to make this team competitive, take them to the playoffs. Yeah, can't do that. Got the oldest roster in the league, but they're not going to the playoffs. John Gruden was hired to be a quarterback whisperer. Elevate the game of Derek Carr. He's looked worse than he's ever looked. John Gruden was brought in to be a motivator. He's lost the locker room. So none of the things that John Gruden was hired to do did he actually do when they hired him. And you know what? Because John Gruden has an obscenely long contract lasting 10 years and worth upwards of $100 million, they can't fire him because they'll owe him all of that money without probable cause. So in other words, not only is John Gruden the worst coach in football this year, he might be the worst coach in football the year after that and the year after that, and they're stuck. They're stuck with John Gruden because they gave him the worst contract in the history of the NFL and certainly in the history of coaching in the NFL. The worst offensive player in football, I wanted to say Nathan Peterman. Nathan Peterman is terrible. He's bad. It's actually fun to watch how bad he is. We are beyond a train wreck. You want to know how bad Nathan Peterman's been? Josh Allen, who the Bills drafted this past year has been injured. And CBSSports.com, they put the stats of the most prolific players in several stat categories up. Josh Allen still leads the team in passing with 832 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Josh Allen still leads the team in passing. That is how bad Nathan Peterman has been. And I still can't give Nathan Peterman the worst offensive player of the year award. And you know why? Because Blake Bortles draws breath on this earth. Blake Bortles, who was also in competition with Eli Manning. There were some guys that I could choose from in terms of who is the guy that has been the most useless for his team. Eli is there because of a legacy issue. Right? The Jaguars just straight up thought Blake Bortles was going to be good, and absolutely no one knows why. What? Because Blake Bortles had a good playoff run last year? How many times does it have to take before we learn the lesson? You can't give a guy a giant contract after a month of good football, because mostly, if you look at what his career has been, it is surprising to absolutely no one that Blake Bortles looks like a guy who's thrown 10 touchdowns and 8 interceptions halfway through an NFL season. This is surprising to 0 people. And they're playing the Colts today, and I know I have the picks coming up later, but they're going to lose. Just spoiler for that segment of the show. And, of course, the worst defensive player in the league. It was hard for me to choose any single defensive player, but the Chiefs are the worst defense in football, so I'm just going to give it to all of them. Just all the Chiefs. Why not? They as a unit have been fundamentally useless. Every single game that they win has to be a shootout of some variety. Patrick Mahomes can do it because he's from the Big 12, and that's just what they do in the Big 12. But that's crazy. Your quarterback is out there putting up monster numbers and can't even win blowouts because your defense is so fundamentally worthless. You're listening to all new Nuga Radio and NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM.
Traffic, news, and information. Nuga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chatter, Nuga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news. Now.
3 women were arrested after a late-night chase on Signal Mountain Road. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office says they saw the Mustang driving erratically. When they tried to pull it over, it sped off, and passengers started throwing suitcases and luggage out of the windows. Eventually, they stopped them and arrested 3 people inside. Haley Brandenburg, as the TBI listed as an endangered child, was found missing walking along the highway in Henry County, Georgia. Robert Guerin, the man she was believed to be with, was taken into custody, and reports say Ms. Brandenburg is safe and sound. There's a 2-alarm fire at a warehouse on Amnicola Highway, and reports say that workers were trapped on the roof. The Chattanooga Fire Department rescued those workers. Reports say smoke could be seen for miles as the fire continued to rage on. It took 24 firefighters to put the fire out. The cause was ruled to be accidental. Russell Stroud, Nuga Radio News, Talk 92.7 Action News now.
Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. on Nuga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nuga Radio 92.7. Nuga Radio, Chattanooga weather.
After this cold and frosty start, lots of morning sunshine for your Sunday. A few afternoon clouds, highs 50 to 52. Tonight, lows near 40 with increasing clouds. Rain will push back in from the south and west Monday. Chilly highs near 45, a few lingering showers through Tuesday morning. What did Jesus mean when he commanded us to be ready? Find out in Looking Up, Living in Anticipation of Christ, a book by local author Eddie Turner, available now at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I'm Sorzine Qualls, Chief Meteorologist at your 4.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
Your home is a constant work in progress. Repaint the walls? Yeah, easy enough. Leaky faucet? There's a video for that. But roof repair? You might want some help. That's where Chattanooga Roofing Contractors come in. They have 3 generations of roofing excellence you can count on. Leave the ladder in the garage. Go to chatroofing.com. That's chatroofing.com for Chattanooga Roofing Contractors, a roofing company you can trust.
My ex recently hacked my email and my social media, and it really caused me some problems. I changed all my passwords, which helped, but I'm still getting trolled, maybe even stalked. I know it's him. I just can't prove it.
My business, well, it's been broken into twice already. I've got cameras, but that only helps after the fact. I'd rather prevent it from happening in the first place.
Unity One East is your solution to these and many other security concerns. With private investigation, security services, and backed by decades of real-life experience in military and law enforcement, Unity One East is your instant contact for security, investigation, and consultation to help protect you, your family, and your business. No 1-800 number, no red tape, no wait, because Unity One East is local and available 24/7. Reclaim your peace of mind. Call Unity One East, 475-6206, 475-6206.
Whether you have marginal, moderate, or even extensive hair loss, you don't have to live with it. Finally, there's a procedure that becomes a part of you, and it requires no daily maintenance or special care. Let Apollo Hair Systems give you a free hair and scalp analysis today. Call 423-803-1011 and schedule this free evaluation today. Open Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Friday and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Apollo Hair Systems, 5512 Ringgold Road in Chattanooga. 423-803-1011 for Apollo Hair Systems.
Paid for by Diane Black for governor, Tommy Whitaker treasurer.
So, who are you supporting for governor?
I think I'm voting for Bill Lee.
So you're voting in the Democratic primary?
What?
Bill Lee really ought to be running in the Democratic primary. I mean, he'd see a lot of familiar faces.
Hello?
All right, look, Phil Bredesen's running in the Democratic primary for Senate.
Yeah?
Well, Bill Lee gave Phil Bredesen money.
Wait, Bredesen's big-time pro-abortion.
And Carl Dean's the Democratic candidate for governor.
Big-time liberal.
Well, Bill Lee gave Carl Dean money, too. And Bill Lee pushed for Megan Barry to be mayor.
She's pro...
WPLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga.
Serving Chattanooga.
Broadcasting live from the center of the universe, the Tennessee Valley's most listened to news talk station.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Quicken Loans.
I'm Stephen Portnoy in Washington. 100 years ago today, the guns fell silent. World War I ended on November 11th, 1918, with the signing of the armistice between the Allies and Germany. Today, President Trump spoke at an American cemetery on the outskirts of Paris.
Here on the revered grounds of Suresnes American Cemetery lie more than 1,500 U.S. service members who made the ultimate sacrifice in the First World War.
I'm Elaine Cobb in Paris. This has not been the most successful trip for President Trump. He prompted derision by suggesting other world leaders came to Paris because he would be there. He tweeted it was insulting. His host, President Macron, suggested a European army to protect against China, Russia, and even the United States. But the most widespread criticism came after he dropped a visit to an American cemetery, citing the weather.
Other world leaders had no trouble getting out to remembrance ceremonies yesterday. Firefighters say they're making some progress containing the wildfires raging in the northern and southern portions of California. CBS's Steve Futterman is monitoring the Woolsey fire in Malibu.
The Santa Ana winds are back. We are told there will be gusts of up to 60, 65 miles an hour. And that's really the worst thing for firefighters as they try to make sure that these hot spots don't kick up again. There is 5% containment of the fire. It doesn't sound like much, but it's a start. And fire crews are prepared for a very difficult 72 hours as the Santa Ana winds are expected to continue through Tuesday.
Yesterday, President Trump tweeted he'd withhold federal funding if California can't get its forest management under control. It's the federal government that owns most of the forests in California. The woman who would be House Speaker tells CBS News Democrats will conduct responsible investigations of the president.
We are not doing any investigation for a political purpose, but to seek the truth. So I think a word that you could describe about how Democrats will go forward in this regard is we will be very strategic.
Nancy Pelosi on Face the Nation. The machine recounts in 2 close Florida elections begin today. Governor Rick Scott, in a tight contest to beat incumbent Democratic Senator Ben Nelson, was on Fox News Sunday.
It's so frustrating when you see supervisor elections that violate the law. That's not just what I'm saying, what judges are saying. We have a reason that we have party officials be able to review ballots. We have a reason that we report information to prevent fraud.
Republicans already accused Democrats of fraud without offering any evidence. This is CBS News.
National mortgage lender Quicken Loans. Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidently. Licensed in all 50 states, equal housing lender, NMLS number 3030.
Give joy, get joy at Kohl's. Stack the Veterans Day savings Sunday and Monday only. Take an extra 15% off. Plus, take an extra $10 off when you spend $25 or more. Plus, take $10 off your $50 home purchase. Plus, get Kohl's cash. Give joy, get joy at Kohl's. Offers valid November 11th and 12th. 15% offer with promo code KICKOFF15. $10 offer with promo code VETERANS. Home offer with promo code HOME10. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
Got some items on your holiday list, but no time for a Target run? Try Drive Up. It's like a Target run with the car running. Just order what you need in the Target app, then drive up, and we'll bring it right out to your car as soon as you arrive. Order up some cleaning supplies and paper towels so the house is holiday ready. New electronics for under the tree, or whatever else is on your list with Drive Up. Drive up, and then drive off. It's easy. Target run and done. Learn more at target.com/driveup. Restrictions may apply.
About the time of the armistice we celebrated at the top of this newscast, that's about the time people stopped having babies at home. But north of Wichita, the paramedics didn't arrive in time, and reporter Kristen Boxman tells us Grandpa had to deliver the baby himself.
Emily Merritt was staying with her parents when she went into labor, and things progressed quickly.
I don't think we're going to make it to town.
With an ambulance on the way, a Harvey County dispatcher stayed on the phone with the family.
We're going to prepare to deliver the baby if we have to, okay?
He walked me through the steps, and it was just a picture-perfect birth.
Are there any obvious problems?
Jeff was a firefighter for more than 30 years and had helped a woman deliver a baby once before.
When it's your own family, that training goes out the window.
But he's thankful the dispatcher was the calm during the chaos.
Found out after talking to the supervisor he'd never done this before. I thought, wow, that's pretty neat.
Paramedics got there 7 minutes after the baby was born. I'm Stephen Portnoy, CBS News.
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
3 women were arrested after a late-night chase on Signal Mountain Road. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office says they saw the Mustang driving erratically. When they tried to pull it over, it sped off, and passengers started throwing suitcases and luggage out of the windows. Eventually, they stopped them and arrested 3 people inside. Haley Brandenburg, who the TBI listed as an endangered child, was found missing walking along the highway in Henry County, Georgia. Robert Guerin, the man she was believed to be with, was taken into custody, and reports say Miss Brandenburg is safe and sound. There's a 2-alarm fire at a warehouse on Amicala Highway, and reports say that workers were trapped on the roof. The Chattanooga Fire Department rescued those workers. Reports say smoke could be seen for miles as the fire continued to rage on. It took 24 firefighters to put the fire out. The cause was ruled to be accidental. Russell Stroud, Chattanooga Radio News, Talk 92.7 Action News now.
Chattanooga Morning News with Russ and Val. Weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM.
After this cold and frosty start, lots of morning sunshine for your Sunday. A few afternoon clouds, highs 50 to 52. Tonight, lows near 40 with increasing clouds. Rain will push back in from the south and west Monday. Chilly highs near 45, a few lingering showers through Tuesday morning. What did Jesus mean when he commanded us to be ready? Find out in Looking Up, Living in Anticipation of Christ, a book by local author Eddie Turner, available now at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I'm Source Dean Qualls, Chief Meteorologist at your 4.
Radio 92.7. We just started a family and we're already planning for the future. Michael Levy has helped pave the way to keep our financial future on track. He's local, he knows us, and cares about what's important to us. Don't put your future on hold. Call Michael Levy, 779-7755.
I'm Bo Watson, and I approve this ad. Neighbors, I'm your state senator, Bo Watson. Jobs, education, safety. These were my priorities when I first ran for office, and they continue to be my focus. We've made great progress in Tennessee the past 4 years. Let's keep it going. Believe in Tennessee. Vote Bo in November. Paid for by friends of Bo Watson, Boy W. Watson III, Treasurer, votefortennessee.com.
Cougar Radio 92.7.
So some folks were wondering about me. They were wondering, don't I pound Dak Prescott enough? Don't I pound him enough? Why wasn't he on my worst defensive player of the year shortlist? Dak Prescott wasn't on my worst defensive player of the year shortlist because he's not close to being the worst offensive player. He's not even close. He is not good. I mean, to be clear, I'm not somehow reversing field on Dak Prescott. He hasn't been good. And the year Dak Prescott was rookie of the year, I thought that was insane. Ezekiel Elliott should have been rookie of the year. But Dak Prescott with a better coach would be a better quarterback. I don't hate Dak Prescott. I don't think that Dak Prescott is done in this league. They drafted him where they drafted him pretty low, and he's not a bust. We've never seen anything like Dak Prescott, though. We've never seen a guy who started off good, started off great, and then regressed to this point without an injury. We saw Robert Griffin III start off great, but then he had an injury. We saw Dante Culpepper at a point in his career start off great. He had a horrific knee injury. And when he came back, he wasn't the same. And especially those two guys, because mobility is such a big part of their game. And the reason why I make that comparison is that mobility is also a huge part of Dak's game. Dak's not really a runner. He's not the fastest guy, like Robert Griffin III, track star. But Dante Culpepper wasn't the fastest guy either. He was mobile. He could extend plays with his feet. But he didn't regress because he just regressed. He got injured. And even when we look at quarterbacks around the league who have regressed, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota has regressed. When you look at a couple of those guys, it's not like they gave us the greatest years to begin with. They started off slow. They got a bit better. They regressed a little bit. That's a normal trajectory in the NFL, especially at the quarterback position. It's a very hard position to play. Right? The jury's still out on Mariota. I'm pretty much done with Jameis. And I'm not done with Dak. Dak can't be a good quarterback in Dallas. But when I look at the other offensive minds in this league and what they were able to do to make life easier for their quarterbacks, what did they do? Sean McVay simplified a lot of stuff for Jared Goff and helps Jared Goff with his pre-snap reads. He stands there on the sideline, and I don't know how many coaches can actually even do this, but he stands there on the sideline and he walks Jared through it. Right? They're allowed that they have the 30-second play clock, and they're allowed to communicate with the quarterback for 15 seconds of the 30-second play clock. And what they'll do is they'll get their play in really fast. And then Sean McVay will walk Jared Goff through the pre-snap reads until he started getting good at it. So it's not magic that Sean McVay showed up and got Jared Goff to be a better quarterback. And the same thing also goes with Matt Nagy and Mitchell Trubisky. Let's make this a really simple offense for you. Let's run a lot of RPOs, college concepts. I mean, when you look at what's happening in Dallas and you look at what's happening in Tennessee with the Titans, I'm looking at some quarterbacks who haven't been given that same level of simplicity, of ease with the offensive minds that run their respective shows. And it's worse in Dallas because they're not doing anything with Scott Linehan. Scott Linehan's not going anywhere. They're going to keep him. Even though this offense is not creative, unimaginative, and broken. So no, I don't hate Dak Prescott, and I don't hate Marcus Mariota either. I know a lot of people have given up on him. I'm waffling on it. I'm on the fence on Mariota. And that's hard for me to admit because I wasn't on the fence. I was a full Mariota guy at the beginning of this season. But he's a roller coaster quarterback. And I don't like roller coaster quarterbacks. I don't like to ride the roller coaster. I don't want to see you up 1 week, down the next week, up 1 week. What is good for organizations and what is good for teams is stability. It's making sure that every single week you do the same thing. What is worse for a business than a leader who's all over the place? There's nothing worse. Like you don't know what he's thinking. You don't know what he's doing. He's erratic. He rolls out of bed one day and his decision is one thing and the next day he's something else. I mean, there's nothing worse in a leader than inconsistency. I ride the roller coaster with Mariota too much. It's not, but I also think you've got to give Mariota not one more year, but at least one more year in this system. And the reason why you do that is because you're usually better in the second year with an offensive coordinator than in the first year. But I'm not wowed by Mariota. I think if you're the Titans, you need to start looking for a Mariota replacement. That's not unreasonable. If you have a quarterback and that quarterback is not the guy, obviously, you start looking for replacements because you're not going anywhere in this league without one. Right? Like, say what you want about Matthew Stafford, but he looks like a starting quarterback in this league. So you sign him and then you look for all the other parts on your team. In their case, a running game because they haven't had one in ever. Like since Barry Sanders. Since Reggie Bush played there 1 year. Right? Like that's their weakness. But you get your quarterback and then you shore up all the other stuff. If you have him. There's a bunch of guys in this league that look like they're the real deal. Kirk Cousins, when he's got weapons, looks real, and he's got weapons. Jared Goff looks real. Deshaun Watson, Cam Newton, right? And then the guys that have been there long enough that we know they're real. Roethlisberger, Rivers, Rodgers, Breeze, Brady. We know they're the real deal because they've been there so long, and they've been doing it at such a high level, you don't have to worry about replacing them. Though, at this stage in their career, getting a younger guy in there just to have an heir apparent is probably not a bad idea. Right, and you saw the Steelers do that. They drafted Josh Dobbs. They drafted the kid out of Oklahoma State, Mason Rudolph. So we've seen other teams do it, build around it. You can do that. That makes perfect sense to me. Where it gets to be head-scratching is if you are a team that your quarterback's not the guy. We've all figured this out. And you enter the draft and somehow don't figure you can at least start looking at a replacement. That's insane. If you're the Titans and you're not at least thinking about moving on from Mariota, you're nuts. If you're the Cowboys and you're not at least thinking about moving on from Dak, I mean, you deserve to be at the bottom of the division anyway then. I mean, you're not. The Giants are, but you deserve to be right there with them. Right? Like the only team that can really, really say that because the quarterback is injured is the 49ers because Garoppolo got hurt. Everybody else, if your quarterback is Alex Smith, Dak Prescott, Blake Bortles, I know you just drafted one with the Bills and you've got Josh Allen, but Josh Allen is not a quarterback. He's a very athletic dude. I almost want to see Josh Allen converted to wide receiver. I almost want to see that. If you got any of those quarterbacks, you need to start thinking about looking for another one. And I know that next year's quarterback draft is not supposed to be the strongest quarterback draft, but we do this every year. I remember this past quarterback draft, everybody said, well, it's not as strong as it's supposed to be. And what did we get out of this draft? We've gotten Baker Mayfield. We've gotten Josh Rosen, who's looked all right. We've gotten Sam Darnold, who is a roller coaster quarterback, but he's a rookie. We've gotten very talented quarterbacks out of this draft. There'll probably be a bunch of talented quarterbacks in the next draft. You're listening to All New Nuga Radio and NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. How big is the gap between Clemson and Alabama, really? It's an important question to ask because that's most likely going to be the national title game. As much as the College Football Playoff Committee likes to add drama to all of this stuff and the way they release their updated rankings, it gets to be incredibly dramatic. It's a little bit annoying to me because it's not like any of it matters. By the time we get to the end of the college football season, all of the big questions that we had end up working themselves out, even if this committee has been biased towards the ACC and generally awful. But it generally works itself out anyway. And the two teams we know are making the playoff, Clemson and Alabama, barring some absolute stunner, those are the teams that are going to be in the playoff. Anything else is ancillary. Like, we're going to probably wind up with some combination of Michigan, Notre Dame, and I know a lot of Georgia fans want Georgia back in the playoff. It's wishful thinking. They're not letting Georgia back in the playoff unless Georgia beats Alabama. And Georgia ain't beating Alabama. I mean, I've thought about this for a very long, hard time. They're not beating Alabama. Jake Fromm has regressed. They don't run the ball as well as they did last year. No wonder they don't have Sony Michel and Nick Chubb anymore. And those guys are monsters. This is still a very good Georgia team. And to be clear, I'm not suggesting that they don't deserve to be in the college football playoff. What I'm saying is that they won't be in the college football playoff unless they can beat Alabama. And they're not beating Alabama because nobody's beating Alabama except for maybe Clemson. The gap between Alabama and Clemson ain't that big. And it's hard to measure it because Clemson is played in the ACC, which is awful. Awful. I know a lot of people think the Pac-12 is the worst Power 5 conference. It's not. It's the ACC. And you can look at all the ranked teams, but the committee is ranking these teams poorly, biased towards the ACC. When you look at all the computer algorithms, you know, the way we used to figure out who was in the college championship game, and we never had a bad championship game. Very rarely did that ever happen. When you look at all of the teams that are supposed to be ranked, the computer algorithms have Syracuse, for instance, 34 spots lower than the committee does. The committee loves the ACC. Pitt's higher than they're supposed to be. Like, all these teams are bad. Miami's bad. They're all terrible. And I know that Clemson is dominating a terrible conference, but they're doing what they're supposed to do. Right? They're showing up, playing teams, and beating them half to death. That is what they're supposed to do. Okay, it's not their fault their conference is weak. Usually when your schedule is weak, that's your fault. You scheduled a weak schedule. They just happen to play in the ACC, and the ACC just happens to be ridiculously bad. Right? Who did they play Saturday? I mean, the ACC is a mockery of football at this particular instance, right? But you still have to go to Clemson and say, well, they're beating people by an average in their last 5 games. They're beating people by an average of 50 points. So they're not just beating people, they're running them over, which when you are clearly the best team in a bad conference, that's what you're supposed to do. But it's how they're doing it. They're a stable, steady team. Trevor Lawrence, steady, man. Absolutely steady. They can run the football. They play tremendous defense, even against the schools that they've played that aren't complete garbage, which, again, not that many teams. I'll admit, not that many teams. But hey, this is a team. They've proven they can beat Alabama before, and we might get an Alabama-Clemson again. We might get Alabama-Clemson again. And did anybody ask for this? Does anybody want this? Not really. But as long as the playoff is going to be 4 teams, you have 5 conferences, one style of football will not be represented. Plus, you've got Notre Dame gumming up the whole operation because they're Notre Dame. I mean, my gosh, who thought that was a good idea? I mean, Notre Dame needs to be in a conference. They need to be in a conference because you could potentially have not 1, but 2 conferences not represented. And how can we say the most important thing in this entire college football playoff process is winning your conference, and you're Notre Dame and you don't even have a conference? Like Notre Dame can always win their conference. All they need to do is be a one-loss, undefeated type team. Their schedule hasn't been hard. So there's no conference for them to win. Like Notre Dame needs to be in a conference. It's never going to happen. The whole allure of them being a non-conference team is, oh, look at how we stand out. So we're only mildly affiliated with who? The ACC, which is the worst league of all the leagues. The worst. So Georgia's not getting in. Alabama, Clemson. Clemson's got the best chance of anybody for beating Alabama. I like Michigan. I like John Harbaugh or Jim Harbaugh. I may be the one of 3 people on this earth that actually likes him, that actually thinks that he is a good coach, that actually thinks that he's more than just an underachiever. And I mean, they were favored to beat Rutgers by 40. They beat them 42-7. I mean, they're handling their business as well, but they can't hang with Bama. As good as they've been, and their one loss to Notre Dame, let's be honest, this Michigan team is better now than when they lost to Notre Dame to start the season. They're 9-1. They're not losing to Ohio State. Ohio State's not good enough to beat them. So who you look at it from top to bottom, who's beating Alabama? Probably Clemson. Probably Clemson. Probably Clemson is the only team that can. And it's hard to tell because we haven't seen Clemson play anybody good. Clemson has played maybe one good team all year long. And like I said, part of it is not their fault. They play in a league that is garbage, possibly the worst of all of them. They played Boston College yesterday. Boston College, by the way, ranked 17th in the nation, also overrated. Boston College scored in the first quarter and never scored again because that's the kind of defense that Clemson is playing. Clemson beat them 27-7 handily. Clemson is still undefeated. And when you look at the way that Clemson has played and look at who they have played this season, you come to realize that they're really good. But who else have they played this year? They've played Furman. They've played Texas A&M. This is their first year with Jimbo Fisher, and I think that Jimbo Fisher is doing a very good job. But A&M's not very good. Right? They're playing Georgia. They played Georgia Southern, beat them, played Syracuse. That was a randomly close game because Syracuse always plays them close, and nobody knows why. They beat up Wake Forest. They beat up NC State. They beat up FSU. They beat up Louisville, put 77 on them. And then they beat Boston College last week, and they end their schedule with Duke and South Carolina. Like the team that is supposed to be the second best team in the nation in Clemson. I don't know if they're any good. I'm sure they're good. The way that I have my eyes tell me this is a good enough team to beat Alabama. They've got the horses. But I don't have the proof. This is the problem that I've got. There's a team that looks like they could maybe hang with the Tide. But I don't have the proof of that. Right? And Alabama, by the way, hasn't exactly played anybody good either. It's not like Alabama's played this transcendent schedule, but Alabama has played in the SEC. The SEC's tough. Alabama played LSU. Blanked them. Clemson plays LSU. They beat LSU. But does LSU score on Clemson? 1, maybe 2 times? Probably. I mean, it comes down to the fact that Alabama's got Tua. It used to be that you could stop Alabama from scoring, slow them down at least, and give yourself a chance. You can't give yourself that same chance as long as Alabama's got Tua. And they're going to have Tua for 3 more years. So everyone else in college football is going to have to figure this out. This is going to continue to be a problem. Like, if you really think this is a problem now, wait till Tua gets better at playing quarterback. He's not as good as he's going to be yet. Clemson can probably beat Alabama. I really think that. But what are they going to do next year? And the year after that? Right now, Trevor Lawrence is really young too. But are we going to want to see Alabama Clemson every year? Because that's what people seem to fail to realize. Everybody is worried about, boy, Alabama's going to beat everybody and it's going to be Alabama again. My question is, how have we overlooked Clemson? How long before we get tired of Clemson, and how long before we get tired of some combination of Alabama and Clemson? Clemson's not going anywhere. Their quarterback is young. Their defense is solid. And Dabo Swinney's a great coach. They're not going anywhere. How long? I don't know. But it's one of those things that is absolutely absurd to me. That people seem to believe that Clemson can't hang with Alabama. But I don't have the proof either. This is the position that they put me in by being in the ACC. They're very, very good. And I can't prove it. Listening to all new Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Crunch with Keon Rose.
Traffic, news, and information. Nuga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chatter, Nuga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news. Now.
3 women were arrested after a late-night chase on Signal Mountain Road. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office says they saw the Mustang driving erratically. When they tried to pull it over, it sped off, and passengers started throwing suitcases and luggage out of the windows. Eventually, they stopped them and arrested 3 people inside. Haley Brandenburg, who the TBI listed as an endangered child, was found missing walking along the highway in Henry County, Georgia. Robert Guerin, the man she was believed to be with, was taken into custody, and reports say Miss Brandenburg is safe and sound. There's a 2-alarm fire at a warehouse on Amicola Highway, and reports say that workers were trapped on the roof. The Chattanooga Fire Department rescued those workers. Reports say smoke could be seen for miles as the fire continued to rage on. It took 24 firefighters to put the fire out. The cause was ruled to be accidental. Russell Stroud, Nuga Radio News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
David Toulis, I made the move, 1 o'clock every weekday afternoon, 1 till 3, Nuga Radio.
92.7 Nuga Radio, Chattanooga weather.
After this cold and frosty start, lots of morning sunshine for your Sunday. A few afternoon clouds, highs 50 to 52. Tonight, lows near 40 with increasing clouds. Rain will push back in from the south and west Monday. Chilly highs near 45, a few lingering showers through Tuesday morning. What did Jesus mean when he commanded us to be ready? Find out in Looking Up, Living in Anticipation of Christ, a book by local author Eddie Turner, available now at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I'm Source Dean Qualls, Chief Meteorologist at your 4.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
Where to go for lunch today? Go to the Top. The Top of the Hill Country Buffet offers a delicious lunch buffet every day. Golden fried chicken with mashed potatoes from scratch, daily fresh vegetables, a full salad bar with all the fixins, and fresh homemade cobbler. In addition to the buffet, Top of the Hill also offers a full menu. Plus, kids eat for $5 all day. Top of the Hill is located in Ringgold on Remco Shops Lane and is open 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Where are you going for lunch? Go to the Top.
I live, work, and play in Chattanooga, the scenic city. But when it comes to my next car, truck, or SUV, I'm Alabama bound. Fort Payne, Alabama, and Landers McClarty Ford. Big city selection of new and pre-owned vehicles with the small town price and friendly service. Now, I'm not knocking my hometown, but when it comes to my next ride, I only go to Landers McClarty Ford of Fort Payne. Their selection is huge. Then if I can't find what I want, they'll find it for me with the same low price, same great service, and only a short drive away. And I can go online to look around before I leave the house. Got that next dream ride in your head yet? Yeah, you do. Get a head start at Landers McClarty Ford of FortPayne.com. Don't just dream it, find it at Landers McClarty Ford of FortPayne.com. That's right, Landers McClarty Ford of Fort Payne, Alabama.
Nuga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Hello? Who am I speaking with? Eric. You're our winner.
Really?
You'll receive tickets for all 3 races between the Camping World Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and the Monster Energy Cup races.
Holy cow.
In addition, you'll receive a 2-night stay at the Microtel Hotel and restaurant accommodations at 2 area restaurants.
Nuga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Nuga Radio.
92.7.
Your NASCAR racing station. Nuga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nuga Radio 92.7.
Listen to that. That's the sound of power and the call of the open road. That's the sound of the newly designed 2019 Indian Chieftain Limited. Yeah, Indian. It's more than a bike. It's an experience and an American icon. The place to find it, Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga, along with their entire new 2019 line. The open road is calling. Answer the call. Go to Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga. Just look for the sign on 153 and Amnicola. Indian Motorcycle, the true American original.
Join Nuga Radio and the Gridiron Gang live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks at 10 North on the North Shore. We're talking all things high school football. There's a specialty brew or refresher weekly inspired by the game of the week. Sweet treats, extended hours all season long, and we're pet friendly. Portions of all proceeds support local schools and educational scholarships as well as after-school programs. It's football time in Tennessee. Join us every Thursday live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks, 10 North, your North Shore neighborhood living room.
The kids are back in school, routine has returned, and we've shifted our thoughts to the fast approaching holiday season. Are you hosting? Want to spruce up before your guests arrive? Whether you want new color and exciting wallpaper or elegant window treatments, the designers at Chattanooga Paint and Decorating can help. With brands like York, Tebow, Graber, and Carroll, we know you'll find something you love. Stop by Chattanooga Paint and Decorating today. It's really more than just a paint store. On Hicks and Pike, across from Valvoline, or online at ChattanoogaPaint.com.
Nuga Radio.
Are you brain dead? Still voting for pathetic liberals? Take 3 hours of Sean Hannity from 3 to 6.
Nuga Radio.
Then call us in the morning between 9 and 11.
92.7.
Nuga Radio.
You're listening to all new Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com. You're on 92.7 FM. Watch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate you. This show is on an NFL Sunday, which means the last segment of the show is NFL Pick Time. And I took a beating last week. I did not pick very many games correctly. I have not been picking against the spread because that adds a level of complication to this. Look, you don't want gambling advice from me anyway. I mean, come on. Do you? I'm going to help you figure out who's going to win outright so you can figure out what games you need to be watching. I'm helping you plan your day. But I didn't do a very good job last week. I picked the Ravens to beat the Steelers. I did get Cowboys-Titans right, though. That's all I'm saying. I've had an overall good season, but last week was atrocious. So we'll see if we can fix this here, because there are a lot of games where we have some interesting variables. So we'll start with the first of the 1 o'clock games, Lions and Bears. The Lions are 3-5. The Bears are 5-3. They're 7.5-point favorites. And the Lions aren't good, but they're not bad either. They're struggling to run the ball particularly well. But part of it is that they have a young running back. I think he'll figure things out. He has been figuring things out, Keon Johnson from Auburn, as the season has gone on. I just believe the Bears to be a better football team. They're more well-rounded. Mitchell Trubisky isn't great, but Matt Nagy is a great offensive mind, and he's made life much easier for Trubisky. And that can't be overlooked. A great offensive mind can make a young quarterback much better. And if a young quarterback can get to be solid early in his career, it means that he has a better chance later on of being good and even great. We've seen it happen with a lot of quarterbacks. And we're watching it happen in LA with Jared Goff and the Rams. He started off with Jeff Fisher and wound up with Sean McVay. And another one of those coach of the year candidates for me, best coach of the year, Matt Nagy. What he's done with the Bears to me has been nothing short of absolutely impressive. The Bears are 7.5-point favorites in this game, and I think the Bears are going to go ahead and take it and cover. I don't like the Lions, and I don't like Matt Patricia. The reason why I don't like Matt Patricia is because the Lions aren't winning. Bill Belichick is hard-nosed, tough, gritty, hard to deal with, but you can put up with that if you win. Who wants to put up with Bill Belichick and losing? That's basically Matt Patricia. The next 1 o'clock game is my Washington Redskins taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're visiting the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are 3.5-point favorites after the Redskins just got pushed around by the Falcons last week, just beaten half to death. That's another one of those picks I was wrong about last week. The Falcons can play. They've got some injuries on defense, and their defense is small. But they're fast. That's a fast team defense that the Falcons bring. Atlanta's really good. I don't think that Washington should have expected really to come out on top in that game. But Washington can beat Tampa Bay. Ryan Fitzpatrick is the quarterback of this team. And if you think Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't going to give you some interceptions, you're crazy. Also, the Buccaneers aren't as good defensively against the run as the Falcons are. They're not as good defensively against the pass as the Falcons are. This idea that somehow the Redskins are going to be slowed down by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 3-5. The Redskins right now are 5-3. All 5 of those wins have come against losing teams or teams who are at 500. All 3 of their losses have come against teams that are better than 500 and are winning teams. What makes you think the Redskins are going to lose this football game? I'm going with the Redskins on the road. The Patriots take on the Titans. The Patriots are 6.5-point favorites. You can talk about all the different injuries that the Patriots have had, but they're 7-2. The Titans are 4-4. I want to like the Titans. The Titans are at home, but I can't pick against Tom Brady. But not only that, the Patriots have done something that I haven't seen them do in a very long time, which is set up their offense with a running game. They can run the ball now. It is a little bit worrying that one of their top wide receivers is also a running back, but they can run the ball. Sony Michel has been stunningly good for them. He's been one of the underrated running back stories of the year. Sony Michel out of Georgia, by the way. And the Patriots are a better coached, more well-rounded team. And if you ask me to ride the Marcus Mariota roller coaster one more time, I'm going to get sick. I'm going to throw up everywhere. It's not going to be pretty. The next 1 o'clock game, Cardinals visiting the Chiefs. The Cardinals are 2-6 for a reason. The Chiefs are 8-1 with their only loss being to the Patriots. They're 16.5-point favorites in the game. And Patrick Mahomes, as I mentioned earlier, he was my offensive player of the year so far because he's thrown 29 touchdowns and only 7 picks. He's got the best weapons in the league. Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce. The list goes on and on and on. He's thrown 29 touchdown passes to 8 different receivers. No other quarterback in the league has done that because no other quarterback in the league has that many weapons, to be completely honest with you. And the Cardinals don't have weapons. The Cardinals don't have weapons at all. They've got Josh Rosen. David Johnson looks like an average running back because he's running behind a terrible offensive line. The Cardinals are going to get stomped out today by the Chiefs, and it's not going to be pretty. I would probably just avoid watching that game entirely. The Bills visit the Jets in the Boo Boo Bowl, 2-7. It's this week's Boo Boo Bowl. The 2-7 Bills, the 3-6 Jets. The best news I have for you, if you are somehow planning to punish yourself by watching this football game, is they're not going to run Nathan Peterman out there. They're gonna start. What's his name? The guy used to play at USC. They're gonna start him instead. It's supposed to be a matchup between Josh Allen and Sam Darnold, but Josh Allen still injured with that elbow injury. So the Bills are going to have to start somebody else. I'm having trouble even finding who it is that they plan on starting. But they're not going with Peterman again. And if they do, well, then actually do watch that game because Nathan Peterman is trying to set some kind of record as the worst quarterback in the history of ever. Sam Darnold is going to throw lots of picks because he's Sam Darnold. Lots of talent. He clearly sees the game, but he also thinks that he can do more than he can actually do. He's only human, and he's got to learn it. The Saints visit the Bengals. The Saints are 7-1. The Bengals are 5-3. The Bengals have a very good defense, right? The Saints are 5-point favorites, 5.5-point favorites on the road.
I really, really enjoy the Bengals defense. They're very good. And their offense, by the way, has been pretty stellar this year as well. Andy Dalton, 17 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Joe Mixon running the ball very well, and A.J. Green returning to form. My issue here is that they're playing the Saints, and Drew Brees and Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, and an offense that is an absolute buzzsaw against even the best defenses in the league, which the Bengals are one of them, but they're not the best defense in the league. And I think that that's the only thing that it would take to stop Drew Brees. Either the best defense in the league or one of the best defenses and a lights-out offense. And the Bengals offense is pretty good, but it's not great. The Falcons, who are 4-4, started off horribly, trying to fight their way into the playoffs in a division that's tough. Carolina loses on Thursday Night Football. That helps them a lot. They're going to try and see if they can fight in for a wild card because they're not catching the Saints. Visit the Browns, 5.5-point favorites visiting the Browns after smacking around the Washington Redskins last week. Matt Ryan looked elite in Sarkisian's system. Year 2 of Sarkisian, it's starting to come together. And I told everyone to stop panicking early in the year. The Falcons are not as bad as the record looks. They played a lot of tough games early, lost to close games, lost a close game to the Saints in overtime, and it's the Saints. Right now, they were on the road too. So I don't think this is a bad Falcons team. They go in, they beat up the Browns, they get above 500, they continue to fight for that wild card spot. The next 1:00 game that I have on the docket, the Jaguars playing the Colts. The Jaguars are 3-5. The Colts are also 3-5. The Jaguars have Blake Bortles. The Colts have Andrew Luck. I'm taking the Colts. The Colts are 3-point favorites. They're also at home. Yes, they can't run the ball. Yes, that offensive line is still very bad. Yes, all the receivers are still tiny. But if your quarterback is Blake Bortles and you expect me to choose him to win in a quarterback duel featuring Andrew Luck, I'm not going to take Blake Bortles at all. I mean, how could you expect that? How can anybody expect that? The Jaguars need to figure out this quarterback situation because they're wasting a very, very good team. Right? Like they're not doing anything this year. 3-5, they're done. Because that division isn't going to let them back in there. It's them and the Colts fighting to not be at the bottom. But look, the Titans are going to ascend still, and the Texans look absolutely brilliant. The 4:00 games start with the Chargers visiting the Raiders. John Gruden is a caricature of John Gruden. John Gruden looks and sounds every bit like a cartoon right now. And it's almost like John Gruden showed up and said, how can I rob these people blind? Oh, I will do none of the things they hired me to do. They hired me to fix their young quarterback, Derek Carr. Not going to do that. They hired me to make the playoffs. Not going to do that. They hired me to be a leader of men and lead this team. I lost the locker room. Not going to do that either. And that's only year 1 of 10 years of over $100 million of money being paid out to Mr. John Gruden. I don't know who John Gruden's agent is. Jason tried to help me find him, but I wish I had his agent to negotiate literally anything nearing what John Gruden has managed to do, which is to be a football coach who has not coached football in a decade and somehow is guaranteed the money of even the best coaches in the league. The Chargers are one of the best teams in the NFL. Phillip Rivers is fantastic. 19 touchdowns so far, only 3 interceptions. Their offense is prolific. They've got dudes that can run on every level of wide receiver, plus Melvin Gordon running the ball too. And they're also led by Joey Bosa and one of the best defenses in the NFL. They're 10-point favorites, but let's be honest, they ought to beat the Raiders by a whole lot more than that. The Dolphins visit the Packers. The Packers are desperate. The Dolphins are 5-4. I don't believe in that 5-4. The quarterback is Brock Osweiler, but I like to call him Brock Lobster because he throws the ball like his hands are claws. They're bad. I don't care that they're 5-4. They play in the same division with the Patriots. So yeah, you get handed some losses by the Patriots, but you know who else you get to play in that division? The Jets, who are bad, and the Bills, who are worse. I'm going to go with Brock Osweiler. Yeah, right. No, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are desperate. They're fighting for a wild card spot because they're not going to catch the Vikings in that division, nor are they going to catch the Bears. They might be able to slide in as a wild card because the middle of the NFC tends to be very muddled. But today, the Packers win. They're going to improve back to 500. The Seahawks visiting the Rams. Very interesting matchup because the Seahawks are 4-4. which sounds like a bad year until you realize that the Seahawks actually started the season 1-3, which means they've won 3 out of their last 4 games. Russell Wilson looks like Russell Wilson, the Pro Bowler. Russell Wilson, the MVP candidate. He's got 18 touchdowns so far in a season where he started off not throwing hardly any, and he's doing so with a team that's running the ball like a top 3 running team in the league, and I didn't see that coming. They drafted Rashad Penny. They're running by committee. It's amazing. They're pulling games out of their behind that I never thought were possible for this team to somehow find ways to win. But the Rams are 8-1. Jared Goff looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Todd Gurley is the best running back in the league, and Todd Gurley should win the MVP this year if for some reason they decide not to give it to Patrick Mahomes. Todd Gurley is the second best player in football this season. That's not particularly up for debate. He's almost at 1,000 yards. He's already got 12 touchdowns on the year, and he is the engine that makes the Rams offense go. The Cowboys visit the Eagles. The Eagles, after winning the Super Bowl, started the year looking like some kind of horror show. And let's be honest, the Cowboys are bad. The Eagles are better than the Cowboys. They're 7.5-point favorites according to Vegas. I think they should beat the Cowboys by more because it's easy to game plan for the Cowboys. Force Ezekiel Elliott to beat you by himself. And Ezekiel Elliott is a talented young player now, but he can't beat you alone. Not as a running back in a quarterback's league. Dak Prescott can't beat you at all. Meanwhile, Carson Wentz, he's starting to return to form. He's starting to realize what it feels like to be a top caliber quarterback again. And he's got all his weapons from last year. The Eagles are going to find a way to win this division. The Redskins aren't an actual good football team. I know they're 5-3, but that's a very deceptive 5-3. They're not a good football team. The Eagles are. And there's a lot of football left to be played in the year, including head-to-head matchups with the Redskins, but it all starts here, beating the Cowboys, beating the team in front of you that you're actually supposed to beat. I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles. And on Monday Night Football, the New York Football Giants visit the San Francisco 49ers, which goes to tell you that when the season started, they thought that was going to be a much better game than it actually is now, because you have one team that's 1-7 and another team that's 2-7. And this is an eyesore of football. I will not be watching Monday Night Football. I'm not in a boycott. I just am opposed to bad football. I don't want my eyes to spontaneously start bleeding while I'm watching TV. I feel like that's not something unreasonable to ask for. But the Giants are terrible. Eli Manning was a candidate for one of my worst offensive player of the year so far awards. He's only thrown 8 touchdowns this season. He's thrown 6 interceptions. They weren't even going to start Eli this week. They weren't going to start him. That's how bad he's been. They were going to start some dude they drafted in the 4th round, Kyle Lauletta. And you know why Kyle Lauletta's not starting? Because Kyle almost ran over a cop, allegedly, and got arrested. Now, let me just talk about this right now. Because Kyle Lauletta almost ran over a cop. And I can't imagine a world where I almost run over a cop and then keep driving to work. They told him to stop. He didn't stop. If a police officer tells me to stop my car, I stop my car. Like, what? Why? What is he doing? That is a healthy, just lack of, lack of awareness, lack of respect for authority. I don't know, man. If the police tell you to stop, just stop. Kyle Lauletta was about to be the starting quarterback of the New York Giants and now is going to be riding the bench. And you know what's crazy? Kyle Lauletta hasn't been suspended. Kyle Lauletta, for as much as we talk about the NFL and like what the NFL stands for, Kyle Lauletta has not been suspended. Nothing. The team decided, well, they can't suspend him because he's the second quarterback on their roster and they only have 2. But I thought this is what the NFL was supposed to be for. Like, the NFL has this whole protocol and policy with players who misbehave. I would like to think, and I'm going to again preface this with an allegedly running over a cop or trying not to listen to him and then almost doing it, whatever the confluence of events were there, I would think that would warrant some kind of suspension or fine. Nope. Not at all. Okay, cool. They're playing the 49ers. And the 49ers played some really, really good football last week, but they were playing the Raiders. And now they're playing the Giants. So, they're playing back-to-back horrible teams. And Nick Mullins, their quarterback, looked not just good. Nick Mullins looked great. He looked great. Now, he was throwing, and this is the thing, when Kyle Shanahan is your offensive coordinator, he's going to make bad quarterbacks or average quarterbacks look really, really great. Nick Mullins was throwing to guys who were so wide open. I could have thrown to those guys. You could have thrown to those guys because that scheme was helping him. But the fact of the matter is, this is a team, they lost their starting quarterback very early in the year. Everyone expected a whole lot more from them. And now they're 2-7. They ought to beat the Giants. Giants are a bad football team. Giants might be the worst football team, to be completely honest with you. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a year where there are more teams that are the worst teams in the league that are a surprise. There are teams that are bad every year. We've got that. I mean, we've got plenty of that. But we expected the 49ers to be good. They're bad. Expected the Giants to be good. They're bad. People expected the Cowboys to be good. They're bad. People expected the Raiders to be good, though I can't imagine why you'd actually believe that. They're bad. Right? The Packers are bad, but I just think Mike McCarthy's time is up over there. I mean, it's got to be frustrating if you're Aaron Rodgers and you're looking out around the league and you see McVay. You're looking around the league and you see Shanahan. You look around the league and you see what Brady has up in New England, and you go, all of these guys are playing quarterback, and it looks so much easier than when I have to play it. It's so much simpler when they play it. And my coach, he doesn't run any action. He doesn't run any motion. He doesn't get anybody open for me. I have a great wide receiver, and I can't ever throw him the ball because he's never schemed open. I mean, Mike McCarthy is a highly overrated coach. He won a Super Bowl because his quarterback's name is Aaron Rodgers, and he managed to have a pretty solid defense one year and hasn't had that ever since. Overrated Mike McCarthy. You're listening to all new Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate you. Remember, folks, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, and I'll see you all next week.
Traffic, news, and information. Nuga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chatta, Nuga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
3 women were arrested after a late-night chase on Signal Mountain Road. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office says they saw the Mustang driving erratically. When they tried to pull it over, it sped off, and passengers started throwing suitcases and luggage out of the windows. Eventually, they stopped them and arrested 3 people inside. Haley Brandenburg, who the TBI listed as an endangered child, was found missing walking along the highway in Henry County, Georgia. Robert Guerin, the man she was believed to be with, was taken into custody, and reports say Miss Brandenburg is safe and sound. There's a 2-alarm fire at a warehouse on Amiclaw Highway, and reports say that workers were trapped on the roof. The Chattanooga Fire Department rescued those workers. Reports say smoke could be seen for miles as the fire continued to rage on. It took 24 firefighters to put the fire out. The cause was ruled to be accidental. Russell Stroud, Nuga Radio News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. on Nuga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nuga Radio 92.7. Nuga Radio, Chattanooga weather.
to this cold and frosty start. Lots of morning sunshine for your Sunday. A few afternoon clouds, highs 50 to 52. Tonight, lows near 40 with increasing clouds. Rain will push back in from the south and west Monday. Chilly highs near 45. A few lingering showers through Tuesday morning. What did Jesus mean when he commanded us to be ready? Find out in Looking Up, Living in Anticipation of Christ, a book by local author Eddie Turner, available now at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I'm Source Gene 12, Chief Meteorologist at your 4.